1913, the introduction of the Federal Reserve. 1913, the introduction of the Federal Reserve cast a dark shadow over humanity that caused us to become fiat slaves. Let me explain. In the 16th century, the feudal ages, when feudal lords used to own land and used to own their little kind of kingdoms, the peasants would come and they would work on the land in exchange for what? Food, safety, security, and a place to live. But the peasants only worked 150 days out of the year. The rest of the year they had free. They kind of did whatever they wanted. They didn't work during the winter. So why is it that all these free people are working 300 days out of the year and have nothing to show for it except the exact same things that the slaves, or the peasants back in the day had to show for it, which was food, maybe a little bit of security, maybe not if you're in London, right? And home that you don't even own. So when I tell people, hey, you're a peasant, they're like, no, I'm not a peasant. Okay, you're worse than a peasant. You're a fiat slave because you're working and running around in that rat race that was constructed, right, to keep you subjugated and controlled. Because the people, well, whether it's the bankers or the people that kind of control the narrative, and it's not just one individual, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of people and lineages and dynasties and that understand how to control individuals, realize that it's a lot better and easier to have a slave work for you under the premise that they're free and that they're working for themselves than to whip them into submission, because it's not ROI positive to whip your slave into submission, to demoralize him, to make him weak. No. You want the cow to produce a lot of milk, so you got to keep pumping it. And people realized very later on in kind of reality that this system was kind of fucking you up. And you had the introduction in 2009 of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of that first competition of sound money that we've had since 1913. And that would be probably in the last 100 years, the two catalyst points that I think people should be focusing on, because people wake up and they want to work for money. But then you ask them, what is money? And they don't know how to define what is money. Who makes it? Who prints it? Who allows there to be $6 trillion printed into circulation? So under the premise, I'm going to be generous, that let's say minimum wage is $15. We'll put that at a US minimum wage. You know, the government of the United States printed $6 trillion. Divide $6 trillion into hourly wage. You're talking about over $400 billion hours of unaccounted labor. So you have this energy and this labor that's supposed to be input, right, into the system in order to receive money. But what happens if you input fake money? There's no work that validates it. So you have the actual work become diluted. That's why all these individuals are out here, which is really funny, working and working and working, and they can't seem to progress. And it's because the fiat system that was cast upon them was designed by nature to keep them as a slave.